What if everything we think we know about history is missing some of its most incredible chapters? Picture ancient civilizations not as primitive societies slowly discovering fire and the wheel, but as innovative cultures capable of creating technology so advanced that it rivals what we have today. These aren't just theories from science fiction, these are real artifacts, buried for centuries, waiting in the sands of deserts and ocean floors to tell a story that challenges our entire understanding of human progress. Each one of these discoveries asks us to reconsider what we believe is possible, pushing the boundaries of science, archaeology, and imagination. Today, we're setting out on a journey to explore 22 of these mind-bending technologies, objects, and inventions that, according to conventional history, simply shouldn't exist. From a 2,000-year-old mechanical computer that could predict the movement of stars, to batteries that may have lit up the ancient world, to maps so accurate they seem to defy the limits of their time. We'll delve into where they were found, what they might have been used for, and why they continue to stump experts around the globe. This isn't just a list of oddities. It's an investigation into the possibility that our ancestors knew more, built more, and dreamed bigger than we've ever given them credit for. So come with me as we uncover secrets, long-forgotten artifacts that hint at lost knowledge, unexplained skills, and perhaps even connections to ideas we're only beginning to grasp today. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a curious explorer, or someone who loves a good mystery, this journey will leave you questioning not just the past, but what might still be waiting, hidden just beneath the surface, ready to rewrite the story of us all. Imagine a device so intricate that it could track the cycles of the moon, predict solar eclipses years in advance, and map the positions of the 5 known planets with a level of precision that wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years. This isn't a description of a Renaissance invention or a modern gadget. This is the Antikythera Mechanism. Found by sponge divers in 1901 amidst the ruins of a sunken Roman cargo ship near the Greek island of Antikythera, this corroded lump of bronze and wood sat unnoticed for decades before researchers realized they were looking at one of the most profound technological artifacts of the ancient world. Radiating an aura of profound mystery, the mechanism is a breathtakingly complex clockwork of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, all housed within a wooden frame roughly the size of a large shoebox. Through a hand crank on its side, the entire system would whir into motion, driving a series of dials and pointers on its front and back faces. These dials didn't just tell time, they painted a dynamic picture of the cosmos. One hand followed the path of the sun through the zodiac, while another showed the phase of the moon. A small, intricate ball, half white and half black, even rotated to display the moon's exact phase in the sky. It was a portable, mechanical universe. The most staggering realization is its date. Through analysis of the shipwreck's cargo and inscriptions on the device itself, scholars have pinpointed its creation to around 100 BCE. To put that in perspective, this mechanism is older than the birth of Christ. For context, technology of comparable mechanical complexity wouldn't reappear until the development of astronomical clocks in medieval Europe, nearly 14 centuries later. It completely shatters our linear perception of technological progress, suggesting that a peak of engineering excellence was achieved, lost, and then forgotten for over a millennium. How did the ancient Greeks accomplish this? The leading theory points towards the brilliant minds emerging from traditions like the school of Archimedes in Syracuse. We know from historical accounts that Archimedes himself built intricate orreries, mechanical models of the solar system, though none have survived. The Antikythera Mechanism feels like a direct descendant of that lineage, a masterpiece of applied mathematics and astronomy. Its design incorporates the sophisticated lunar theories of Babylonian astronomers, proving that this wasn't an isolated invention but the product of a rich, interdisciplinary scientific culture that valued precision and mechanical ingenuity. The existence of this device forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about the gaps in our historical record. Was the Antikythera Mechanism a one-of-a-kind treasure, a royal toy for a wealthy noble? Or was it merely one example of a known tradition of fine instrument making? The same ship carried statues, coins, and glassware luxury goods. This suggests the mechanism itself was a valuable item, perhaps being transported to a Roman dignitary. Its loss to the deep sea may have robbed us of an entire library of knowledge, leaving this single, salvaged wonder as the only clue to a level of technological achievement we never knew existed. It stands as a silent, bronze-knotted question mark against everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. But if the Antikythera Mechanism represents a pinnacle of mechanical genius, our next artifact suggests something even more startling, a flicker of electrical understanding in a world we imagine was lit only by fire. Discovered in 1936 during excavations near Baghdad, this peculiar object doesn't look like much at first glance. It's a simple, modest clay jar about the size of a man's fist. Yet inside this unassuming vessel lies an arrangement that has sparked decades of debate and wonder. The jar contains a rolled copper sheet forming a cylinder, and nestled within that cylinder is a solid iron rod. The top was sealed with asphalt or bitumen, which acted as a stopper, holding the metal elements firmly in place and insulating them from each other. If this setup sounds familiar, that's because it bears a striking resemblance to the basic components of a simple battery. The theory, first proposed by German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig, is that if this jar were filled with an acidic or alkaline liquid, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, it would create a chemical reaction. The acidic electrolyte would interact with the two different metals, the copper and the iron, causing electrons to flow from one to the other through the liquid. This process would generate a small electrical charge, enough to produce a modest voltage between the two metal rods. In essence, this clay pot could have functioned as a primitive galvanic cell, a device for producing electricity over 2,000 years ago. So what would an ancient civilization do with such a seemingly modest power source? One of the most compelling possibilities is electroplating, the process of using an electric current to bind a thin layer of a precious metal, like gold, onto the surface of a less valuable object like silver or copper. Numerous exquisite artifacts from the same period and region show evidence of fine, thin gold plating, a technique that can be difficult to achieve with simple mercury gilding. A small battery connected in a series to increase its output could have provided just enough current to accomplish this, allowing artisans to create stunning, gilded objects with an efficiency that seems to defy their time. Other theories propose more speculative but equally fascinating uses. Some historians have suggested a medical application, pointing to ancient Greek and Roman texts that describe the use of electric fish to deliver shocks for pain relief. Could these batteries have been used in a similar way for a form of early electrotherapy? Perhaps the mild tingling sensation produced by the current was interpreted as a magical or divine power, used by priests in religious ceremonies to inspire awe among the faithful. While we may never know its true purpose with absolute certainty, the very existence of such an object forces us to reconsider the innovative spirit of the ancient world. The dating of these jars adds another layer of mystery. They are generally attributed to the Parthian period, around 250 BC to 224 CE, or possibly the later Sassanid era, up to the 6th century CE. This places their creation in a region that was a crossroads of the ancient world, a melting pot of knowledge and culture. The biggest question, of course, is whether this was a one-off accidental discovery or part of a broader, albeit lost, tradition of experimentation. No wires or connectors have ever been found alongside these jars, which is a point often raised by skeptics. Yet the design is too deliberate, too perfectly arranged for generating a current, to be easily dismissed as merely a storage vessel for sacred scrolls or herbs. The Baghdad Battery stands as a powerful symbol of a road not taken. It represents a tantalizing glimpse of a potential path toward electrical understanding that lay dormant for centuries. It challenges the linear narrative of scientific progress, suggesting that curiosity and experimentation with the fundamental forces of nature are not solely modern pursuits. Whether it was used for plating jewelry, treating ailments, or inspiring religious wonder, this humble clay pot compels us to wonder what other secrets of the ancient world remain buried, waiting to jolt us out of our assumptions about the past. Now, let's shift our focus from the potential for ancient electricity to the tangible, fearsome reality of a blade that could slice through a silk scarf as it fell through the air, or cleave an opponent's sword in two without losing its edge. This isn't a legend, this is the legacy of Damascus steel. Forged in the fires of innovation between the 3rd and 17th centuries, primarily in the Middle East, these swords became the stuff of myth, treasured by crusaders who faced them in battle and considered them almost magical in their superiority. The secret of a Damascus blade wasn't just in its shape, but in its very soul, the material itself. This wasn't ordinary iron. It began its life as a special type of high-carbon steel ingot known as Wootz steel, which originated in India and Sri Lanka. These ingots were a form of ultra-high-carbon steel, containing microscopic carbon nanotubes and carbide nanowires, a nanostructure that modern science is only now beginning to fully appreciate and understand. Craftsmen would then take these precious ingots and heat them in a sealed clay crucible, melting the iron and allowing it to slowly absorb carbon from organic materials like leaves or wood chips, creating a unique and incredibly hard steel. But the true magic, the art that is now lost, happened at the forge. The smith would take this ingot and begin the painstaking process of heating, hammering, and folding it, not dozens but potentially hundreds of times. With each fold, the steel was welded back onto itself, a process that distributed the carbon content incredibly evenly throughout the blade and created those mesmerizing, watery patterns on its surface. These patterns weren't merely decorative, they were the visible fingerprint of the steel's intricate internal microstructure, a map of its legendary strength and flexibility. It was this combination of a perfect recipe and a masterful, rhythmic forging technique that gave the blade its renowned properties, a sharpness that could rival a modern razor, a resilience that could absorb tremendous impact without shattering, and a flexibility that allowed it to bend dramatically and then spring back straight. The heartbreaking truth for historians and metallurgists is that the exact full process has been lost to time. We understand the components, the Wootz steel, the folding, the heat treatment, but we cannot perfectly replicate the final product. It's believed that the specific source of the iron ore in India, with its unique trace impurities like vanadium or tungsten, combined with the precise temperature controls and the smith's intuitive skill, created a perfect storm of conditions that we simply cannot recreate today. Modern attempts to forge pattern-welded steel often create a visual imitation of the wavy pattern, but they lack the same nanoscale structure and thus the same legendary performance. The knowledge wasn't written down in a manual, it was passed from master to apprentice through generations, a symphony of fire, hammer, and human intuition that fell silent centuries ago. The disappearance of this technology is a profound lesson in how easily pinnacles of achievement can vanish. Changes in trade routes may have cut off the supply of the special Indian iron ore. Perhaps political upheavals and wars disrupted the guilds of master smiths, breaking the chain of apprenticeship, or maybe the sheer labor-intensive nature of the process was eventually made obsolete by larger-scale, if inferior, methods of mass production. Whatever the reason, Damascus steel represents a technological peak that was reached, held for a glorious period, and then allowed to fade back into the sands, leaving behind only its beautiful, deadly products and a mystery that continues to captivate and challenge us, a reminder that some secrets of the past remain stubbornly out of reach. If the thought of a sword that never dulls is impressive, then consider a weapon so terrifying that it seemed to defy the very laws of nature itself. Picture a naval battle in the 7th century, wooden ships packed with soldiers drawing close for a boarding action. Suddenly, from the deck of a Byzantine dromon, a tube erupts not with a solid projectile but with a roaring, liquid stream of fire. This isn't ordinary flame. It hits the water and doesn't sizzle out. It clings to the surface, spreading and burning with an intense heat. It sticks to the hulls of ships and the clothes of sailors, and no amount of water can quench it. Panic erupts as men jump into the sea only to find the fire waiting for them there too. This was the reality of Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's most closely guarded and devastating secret weapon. The exact formula for this legendary substance died with the empire that created it, and its composition remains one of history's most enduring chemical mysteries. Based on contemporary accounts and what we know of available materials, historians and chemists have pieced together a likely recipe. The primary ingredient was almost certainly crude petroleum or naphtha, a highly flammable liquid that could be easily sourced from natural oil seeps around the Black Sea. But naphtha alone would not have the infamous properties described in ancient texts. To this base, Byzantine chemists, or more accurately, alchemists likely added other compounds. Quicklime, for instance, heats up dramatically when it comes into contact with water, which could have preheated the mixture upon deployment. Sulfur would lower its ignition point and produce thick, choking fumes, while saltpeter or pine resin could have made it thicker, allowing it to stick to its targets and burn longer. Some theories even suggest the mixture contained calcium phosphide, which releases phosphine gas upon contact with water and would indeed ignite on the surface of the waves. The true genius of Greek fire, however, lay not just in its chemistry but in its delivery system. This wasn't a weapon you simply threw in a pot. It was a sophisticated piece of military hardware. The most common method of deployment was through a pressurized tube called a siphon, mounted on the prow of a ship. Bronze pumps would force the liquid mixture through this tube, where it was presumably ignited by a constant flame or a quick application of a torch at the nozzle, creating a terrifying flamethrower that could project its stream over a significant distance. There is also evidence of handheld siphons for use by soldiers and of clay grenades filled with the mixture that could be hurled at enemy forces, creating a versatile arsenal of incendiary devices that could be used in both naval and land warfare. The strategic impact of this technology cannot be overstated. For centuries, it was the ultimate naval deterrent, a force multiplier that allowed the smaller Byzantine navy to defend its capital, Constantinople, against seemingly overwhelming forces. Most famously, it was credited with saving the city during the Arab sieges of the 7th and 8th centuries, effectively burning entire fleets out of the water and securing the empire's survival. Its psychological effect was as powerful as its physical one. The the mere threat of sea fire was often enough to sow discord and fear in an enemy fleet long before a single ship was engaged. And this gets to the heart of why Greek fire is such an anomalous technology. Its creation and deployment required a seamless fusion of advanced chemical knowledge and precision mechanical engineering that feels centuries ahead of its time. The Byzantines didn't just stumble upon a flammable liquid. They understood its properties well enough to weaponize it effectively, and most importantly, to keep it secret for over 500 years. The formula was such a closely held state secret that it was said to have been known only to the reigning emperor and one family of chemists. Its components manufactured in different locations and combined only under strict supervision. This level of organized, state-sponsored research and development into a chemical weapon is a concept we more readily associate with the modern world than with the early medieval period. It stands as a stark reminder that the so-called Dark Ages held pockets of brilliance and technological sophistication so potent that they could, quite literally, set the sea on fire. From the terrifying spectacle of Greek fire that could dominate the seas, we journey now to a creation of an entirely different scale and purpose, one that trades roaring flames for silent, sprawling mystery etched into the very earth itself. Far below, in the arid plains of southern Peru, lies one of archaeology's most perplexing puzzles, the Nazca lines. Imagine standing on the ground in this desert. The terrain is a vast, stony canvas of reddish-brown pebbles, and at your feet, you might notice a shallow groove where the dark surface rocks have been cleared away to reveal the lighter-colored sand beneath. It seems like a simple path perhaps made by long-forgotten travelers, but this perspective is a grand illusion, one that hides the truth completely. To see these markings for what they truly are, you must ascend, you must take to the sky. Only from high above does the desert floor reveal its secret art gallery. From the window of an aircraft, the simple path transforms. It connects, it curves, it defines. What seemed random from the ground resolves into a staggering array of immense figures. A hummingbird with its long, delicate beak perfectly outlined stretches over 300 feet. A spider with one leg extended in an anatomically precise curve is larger than a football field. A condor with massive outstretched wings, a monkey with an intricately coiled tail, a whale, a tree, and countless geometric shapes, miles-long straight lines that run flawlessly to the horizon, enormous trapezoids, and spirals that seem to pull the eye into their center. In total, there are hundreds of these geoglyphs, created by the Nazca people between roughly 500 BC and 500 CE. Their sheer scale is the first breathtaking anomaly. These are designs so vast they can only be fully comprehended from an altitude that the Nazca themselves could never have achieved. This fundamental disconnect between the ground-level creation and the aerial viewpoint required for appreciation is the core of the mystery. How did they do it with such jaw-dropping precision? The method of construction itself is deceptively simple in theory. The Nazca artists removed the top layer of sun-darkened, iron oxide-coated stones, exposing the lighter, gypsum-rich sand below. The dry, windless, and stable climate of the desert has preserved these cleared lines for over 2,000 years. The real question is one of design and scale. How did they transfer a small-scale sketch onto a landscape measuring miles without any apparent missteps or distortions? The prevailing archaeological theory suggests a mastery of simple but effective surveying techniques. They could have used a series of stakes and ropes to plot out the figures from a central point, scaling them up gradually. A team working on one small section would only need to follow the instructions of a master planner who held the overall design in their mind, ensuring each curve and angle was executed correctly. This method requires incredible patience, coordination, and geometric understanding, but it is technologically within the realm of possibility for a sophisticated ancient culture. Yet the purpose of these colossal efforts is where the debate truly ignites. The most widely accepted theory, proposed by researcher Maria Reich, who dedicated her life to studying the lines, is that they served a deep astronomical and calendrical function. The lines may have pointed to celestial bodies on the horizon, marking solstices, equinoxes, or other significant astronomical events critical to an agricultural society for scheduling planting and harvests. The animal figures might have represented constellations or deities in the Nazca cosmos. Another compelling theory posits they were sacred pathways, walked during religious rituals to invoke life-giving water from the gods, a desperate and understandable plea in one of the driest deserts on Earth. The depiction of animals like the hummingbird and the monkey, which are not native to the desert but to the fertile coastal and mountainous regions beyond, supports this idea of them being symbols for water and fertility. However, the line's visibility only from the air has inevitably fueled more speculative ideas. In the mid-20th century, some authors began to propose that the Nazca Plateau was a giant airfield or landing strip for extraterrestrial visitors, with the markings serving as signals or navigation aids. While this captures the imagination, it creates a logical paradox. If the beings were advanced enough to travel between stars, why would they need simple lines on the ground to navigate? A more terrestrial, though still advanced, theory suggests the Nazca might have pioneered early forms of hot air balloon technology to observe their work in progress. There is some scant archaeological evidence to ponder, including fabric fragments that could have held air and ceramic pots with designs interpreted as balloon burners, but no definitive proof has been found. Whether the product of ritual walking, celestial observation, or something even more extraordinary, the Nazca lines remain a powerful testament to a culture that thought in monumental terms, transforming their entire landscape into a permanent testament to their beliefs, a message written on the planet itself, waiting centuries for humanity to take flight and finally read it. While the Nazca lines demonstrate a culture's mastery over vast landscapes, another ancient wonder reveals a profound command over something far smaller, yet equally miraculous, the very atoms of metal itself. In the heart of Delhi, India, within the complex of the Qutb Minar, stands a silent sentinel that has defied one of nature's most relentless forces, corrosion. The iron pillar of Delhi rises over 23 feet into the air, a single, solid shaft of wrought iron weighing more than 6 tons. Inscriptions on its beautifully crafted surface tell us it was erected in honor of the Hindu god Vishnu during the Gupta Empire, around the 4th century CE. That means it has been standing in the open air, exposed to sun, wind, monsoon rains, and modern pollution for over 1,600 years, and in all that time it has never rusted. This isn't just a little bit of rust resistance, it's a near-total defiance of the natural process that turns iron into fragile, flaky oxide. For comparison, a modern iron nail left outside might begin to show significant corrosion in a matter of months. A modern steel bridge requires constant painting and maintenance to fight a losing battle against rust. Yet this ancient pillar, forged over a millennium and a half ago, remains smooth and largely untouched, a gleaming testament to a forgotten scientific art. The question isn't just how they did it, but how they understood the principles so deeply that their creation could endure for ages. The secret, uncovered through modern metallurgical analysis, lies in its unique chemical composition and the ingenious forging technique employed by its creators. The iron used is remarkably pure, with a very low sulfur and manganese content, impurities that typically accelerate corrosion. But the real genius is in its high phosphorus content. Modern iron production removes phosphorus because it can make the metal brittle, but the Gupta-era ironsmiths, whether by accident or brilliant design, ended up with a phosphorus level about 1% by weight, which is significantly higher than what is found in contemporary iron. When this phosphorus-rich iron is exposed to the atmosphere, something remarkable happens on its surface. Instead of forming the unstable, porous, and expansive rust that plagues ordinary iron, it develops a thin, continuous, and incredibly stable protective film called mesawite. This film, only a few hundred microns thick, is a phosphate-rich layer that acts as a perfect barrier. It prevents moisture and oxygen from penetrating deeper into the metal, effectively putting a stop to the corrosion process before it can even properly begin. It's a self-healing, self-regulating passive layer, a kind of ancient nanotechnology achieved through chemistry alone. The method of construction further highlights their advanced skill. The pillar was not cast but forged, meaning it was made by hammering together multiple pieces of hot iron. Weighing over 6 tons, this was a monumental undertaking in itself, requiring a large team of smiths working in perfect coordination with massive hammers and bellows. The even distribution of slag inclusions, the tiny bits of non-metallic material within the iron, suggests it was hammered and worked with incredible consistency, creating a uniform microstructure that contributes to its overall durability. This was not a haphazard effort. It was the product of a highly sophisticated and likely well-established tradition of large-scale ironworking, a tradition that understood the relationship between material composition, manufacturing process, and long-term environmental performance in a way that would not be scientifically replicated in the West until the 20th century. The pillar's existence forces us to re-evaluate the technological landscape of ancient India. It wasn't an isolated fluke. Historical records describe massive iron objects from the period, including large beams used in temples and enormous pillars, though this is the only one of its size to survive fully intact. It points to a society with advanced knowledge of metallurgy, chemistry, and large-scale industrial organization. They weren't just making tools and weapons, they were creating monumental art that was engineered to last forever, a physical prayer to the gods that was as scientifically sound as it was spiritually significant. It stands today not just as a curious artifact, but as a quiet, enduring challenge to our modern assumption that such control over materials is a recent achievement. Moving from the silent, enduring defiance of the iron pillar, we now turn to an object that offers not answers but an endless stream of questions, a book that actively refuses to reveal its secrets. Imagine discovering a volume that looks and feels like any other medieval manuscript, its vellum pages filled with careful script and curious drawings. But as you look closer, a deep unease sets in. The writing is fluid and consistent, clearly following the rules of a real language, yet not a single word is recognizable. The illustrations are both familiar and utterly alien. Plants that don't exist, star charts for constellations we cannot name, and nude women bathing in what appears to be a system of green, interconnected pipes. This is the Voynich Manuscript, and it is arguably the most stubbornly mysterious book in the world. The manuscript first appears in the historical record with certainty in the late 16th century, when it was purchased by Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia for the enormous sum of 600 gold ducats, a king's ransom for a book no one could read. Its journey before that is murky, but carbon dating of the vellum places its creation between 1404 and 1438, most likely in northern Italy. For centuries, it passed through the hands of alchemists, scholars, and book collectors, each one hoping to be the genius who cracked its code. It eventually found its way to a Jesuit college and was finally purchased by a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich in 1912, whose name it bears today. He promoted it tirelessly, and it now resides in the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, a puzzle waiting to be solved. At its heart, the mystery is the text itself. It is written in a unique, elegantly looping script, moving from left to right. Statistical analysis of the writing reveals patterns that are consistent with a natural language. It has the word entropy and word length distribution of a real linguistic system, not random gibberish. The text is composed of around 25 to 30 distinct characters, with some characters only appearing at the beginning of words and others only at the end, much like letters in a real alphabet. This complexity has led to centuries of failed decipherment attempts. World War II codebreakers who successfully cracked the infamous Enigma code turned their skills to the Voynich and walked away baffled. Modern supercomputers and artificial intelligence algorithms have analyzed its patterns and proposed everything from an encoded form of Hebrew to a lost dialect of Chinese, but no theory has held up to rigorous scholarly scrutiny. The code, if it is one, remains unbroken. The illustrations only deepen the enigma, dividing the book into distinct sections that each present their own riddles. The largest section is filled with herbal drawings of plants that are fantastical hybrids or completely unknown to botany. Leaves have strange, impossible root systems. Flowers bloom in bizarre configurations. Another section is astronomical, featuring circular diagrams of medallions with stars, suns, and moons alongside zodiac symbols. Yet the nymphs nestled within these charts are nothing like classical representations. The biological section is perhaps the most peculiar, showing those nude female figures, often with swollen abdomens, immersed in or connected by a network of vessels and tubes flowing with a green fluid. This has led to interpretations ranging from a treatise on human reproduction and balneotherapy, the use of baths for medicine, to something far more esoteric. Finally, there are pages of what look like recipes, dense paragraphs of text next to drawings of small stars and roots, suggesting a book of pharmaceutical or alchemical knowledge. So what are we really looking at? The theories are as varied as they are contentious. The mainstream academic debate splits into two major camps. The first believes it to be a ciphertext, a valuable work of science or medicine, deliberately encoded to protect secret knowledge from rivals or the scrutiny of the church. This would explain the conscious effort behind its creation, but not why such a complex cipher has resisted all modern attempts to break it. The second camp views it as a constructed language, perhaps a philosophical or artistic creation meant to express ideas in a new, perfect form. However, the most controversial theory, and one that has gained some traction in recent linguistic studies, is that it could be a rare example of a glossolalia text, a written record of automatic writing, or a flowing, meaningless script channeled during a trance state, given structure by the human brain's innate desire to find patterns. This would make it a sacred object, not a scientific one, and of course the shadow of an elaborate hoax always looms. Could it be a brilliant forgery, perhaps even by Voynich himself, designed to create a valuable antiquity? The carbon dating confirms the age of the vellum, but the ink has proven more difficult to date conclusively. Yet the idea of a 15th century forger possessing the sophisticated linguistic knowledge to create a text that fools modern computers seems, in its own way, just as improbable as the manuscript being a genuine record of lost knowledge. The Voynich Manuscript is a perfect paradox. Its very existence is proof of a deliberate and intelligent creation, but its purpose remains eternally out of reach. It doesn't just represent a lost technology, it represents a lost world of thought, a complete intellectual universe that we can see but cannot enter, a beautiful and endlessly frustrating reminder that some chapters of the human story are written in a language we may never learn to speak. Now, let's trade the cryptic pages of an unreadable book for an artifact that feels startlingly familiar, a shape that would not look out of place in a modern child's toy box or an aeronautical engineer's workshop. In 1898, during the excavation of a tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, the same vast necropolis that is home to the Step Pyramid, archaeologists uncovered a small, carefully carved object. Made from sycamore wood and dating to approximately 200 BCE, it was catalogued simply as a bird figurine and placed in the Cairo Museum alongside other funerary items. For decades, it rested there, seen as nothing more than a stylized representation of a falcon, a common religious symbol. It wasn't until the 1970s that someone looked at this bird and saw something else entirely, an aircraft. The object, now known as the Saqqara Bird, is sleek and minimalist. It has a fuselage that tapers to a pointed nose, a straight wingspan that is slightly angled downward, and a vertical tail fin that stands straight up. The most striking feature, and the one that most clearly distinguishes it from a typical bird carving, is that this tail fin is perpendicular to the wings. In nature, a bird's tail feathers are horizontal, used for steering and balance. A vertical tail fin, or rudder, is an invention of aeronautics, a feature designed to provide stability in flight and prevent an aircraft from spinning out of control. This single, anomalous detail is what launched 1,000 theories. Was this simple wooden object merely a child's toy, a ceremonial throw stick, or could it be a scale model of a much larger, functional glider? The theory that it represents ancient knowledge of aerodynamics was catapulted into the mainstream by Dr. Khalil Messiha, an Egyptologist and model plane enthusiast. He was the one who noticed the peculiarity of the tail and proposed that the artifact was a model glider. To test the hypothesis, enthusiasts have created numerous scaled-up replicas of the Saqqara Bird. When these models are fitted with a small horizontal stabilizer, a part that some suggest might have broken off the original, they exhibit remarkable flight characteristics. They are capable of gliding for significant distances with a smooth, stable trajectory when launched by hand. This has led to compelling speculation. Did the ancient Egyptian craftsmen who carved this object understand the basic principles of lift and stability? Was this a designer's prototype, a teaching model, or perhaps even a toy based on a larger, understood technology? Mainstream archaeology, however, offers more grounded, though no less fascinating, interpretations. The most widely accepted theory is that the Saqqara Bird is a representation of a ceremonial throwing stick or a model of a sacred falcon. In ancient Egyptian culture, the falcon was intimately associated with the god Horus, the divine sky god. A votive object like this, placed in a tomb, would have held profound religious significance, symbolizing the soul's ability to ascend to the heavens and be under the protection of a powerful deity. The vertical tail, in this context, could be a stylistic representation of the bird's tail feathers as seen from a particular angle, or a simple artistic convention that held symbolic, not aerodynamic meaning. It could also be a functional part of the object's design as a boomerang-like throwing stick used in religious rituals or hunting. The true mystery of the Saqqara Bird lies not in proving one theory definitively right or wrong, but in contemplating the fascinating space between them. It exists at a perfect crossroads of interpretation. On one hand, we have a culture that was deeply spiritual, whose art was symbolic and whose worldview was infused with the divine. On the other hand, we have a culture that was intensely practical and brilliantly innovative. The same civilization that mastered stoneworking to build the pyramids, developed advanced mathematics for surveying land after the Nile's floods, and created a 365-day calendar based on precise astronomical observation. Is it so impossible that such a culture might have observed the flight of birds and seeds and experimented with aerodynamic principles? Even if the Saqqara bird itself was never meant to fly, its shape demonstrates a keen observation of forms that slice through the air efficiently. Ultimately, the Saqqara bird serves as a powerful Rorschach test for how we view the ancient world. We look at this simple piece of sycamore wood, and we see what we want to see. Some see a confirmation that human ingenuity has expressed itself in similar ways across millennia, that the dream of flight is an ancient one. Others see a beautiful religious object, a key to understanding the spiritual life of a people long gone. Its power lies in its ambiguity, a silent wooden question hovering between the realms of ritual and science, challenging us to wonder just how far the eyes of the ancients were looking toward the horizon, and perhaps even toward the sky above it. From the sleek, aerodynamic lines of the Saqqara bird, we now turn to an object of chilling beauty and impossible perfection, one that seems to capture light and mystery in equal measure: the crystal skull. Picture a life-sized human skull, not carved from bone or stone, but sculpted from a single, flawless block of the clearest quartz crystal. It's cool to the touch, and when light passes through it, the skull seems to hold an inner glow, a captured luminescence that dances across its perfectly polished surfaces. The most famous of these, known as the Mitchell-Hedges skull, is said to have been discovered in 1924 by adventurer F.A. Mitchell-Hedges' adopted daughter, Anna, during an excavation of a Mayan temple in Loubontin, Belize. As the story goes, she saw something glinting in the sunlight beneath a collapsed altar, and upon digging it out, she unearthed this breathtaking artifact, its lower jaw found separately 3 months later. The legend that grew around this discovery is as multifaceted as the crystal itself. Proponents of its ancient origins point to its breathtaking craftsmanship. It is carved from a single block of clear quartz, with a detachable jaw that fits perfectly on smooth, almost invisible pivots. There are no telltale marks from metal tools, no scratches or gouges that would indicate it was shaped by conventional means. In fact, some researchers have claimed that the crystal shows no evidence of directional cutting marks at all, as if it were shaped using a technology that somehow eroded the material evenly in all directions simultaneously. This has led to extraordinary theories, suggesting it could have been painstakingly polished into shape over multiple generations using a mixture of sand and water, a process that would require centuries of unwavering dedication. Even more speculative ideas propose it was formed using some form of lost sonic technology, or that its origins are not of this world at all. For decades, the Mitchell-Hedges skull and others like it were held up as enigmatic proof of a lost advanced civilization or profound spiritual knowledge possessed by ancient Mesoamerican cultures. They were said to have strange properties. Some people reported feeling a sense of energy or heat when near them. Others claimed to have visions or hear faint sounds. They became central artifacts in New Age lore, symbols of a connection to Atlantis or Lemuria, and were sometimes called records of knowledge that could psychically impart wisdom to those who were sensitive enough. Their perfect, universal form, a human skull, transcended specific cultures, making them a powerful and instantly recognizable icon of the mysterious and the occult. However, the shimmering facade of mystery began to develop cracks under the scrutiny of modern science. In the 1990s and 2000s, detailed studies were conducted on the most famous skulls using advanced microscopy and other analytical techniques. The results were definitive and, for many, disappointing. Microscopic examination revealed straight, perfectly parallel scratches on the surface of the crystal, marks that are the unmistakable signature of rotary wheels and polishing tools coated with industrial diamond technology that simply did not exist in the pre-Columbian Americas. The type of quartz itself was traced to sources in Brazil and Madagascar, far from any ancient Mesoamerican trade routes. The evidence pointed overwhelmingly to a 19th-century German origin, likely from the workshops of Idar Oberstein, a world-renowned center for gem carving that was famous for producing such exquisite objects for the European curiosity market. The Mitchell-Hedges skull itself has no documented history before it was purchased by F.A. Mitchell-Hedges at a Sotheby's auction in London in 1943, a fact that severely undermines the romantic story of its discovery. So, does this mean the crystal skulls are a closed case, mere beautiful fakes? Not entirely. While the most prominent skulls have been debunked as modern creations, the story is more nuanced. Smaller, cruder, and less famous crystal skulls do exist in museum collections, like one held by the British Museum and another by the Smithsonian. These lack the impossible perfection of the Mitchell-Hedges skull and show clear signs of being worked with hand tools. They are generally believed to be genuine pre-Columbian artifacts, likely used as ritual objects. Their purpose remains a subject of debate. They may have represented deities of death or rebirth, or served as powerful talismans for priests. This creates a fascinating spectrum. On one end, authentic ancient artifacts that are spiritually significant but technologically within the realm of understood ancient lapidary skills, and on the other, breathtaking modern forgeries whose creation required a different kind of advanced, albeit industrial, technology. The enduring power of the crystal skull, then, lies not in its supernatural origin, but in its potent symbolism. It is a perfect vessel for our projections. It represents humanity's timeless fascination with mortality, with mastery over the natural world, and with the desire to believe that our ancestors possessed profound, even magical, secrets. The fact that these objects were so expertly crafted in the 19th century is, in its own way, just as impressive. They required immense skill, patience, and a deep understanding of crystal properties to create, proving that human ingenuity is always capable of producing wonders, whether in the distant past or the more recent one. They stand as a dual mystery, first, as a testament to the art of the forger, and second, as a powerful cultural phenomenon that reveals our deep and abiding need to find magic and mystery hidden within the sands of time. Now, let's shift our gaze from the mysterious artifacts tucked away in tombs and temples to a document that charts the very shape of the world itself, a map that seems to hold knowledge it simply shouldn't possess. In 1929, during the renovation of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, scholars made a discovery that would send ripples through the world of cartography and history. Tucked away in the palace's vast library, they found a fragment of a world map drawn on gazelle skin parchment. It was signed by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis and dated to the year 1513. At first glance, it was a beautiful example of early 16th century mapmaking, rich with illustration and Arabic script, but a closer look revealed something astonishing. This map didn't just show the known world of Europe and Africa. It depicted the eastern coast of South America with a clarity and accuracy that was, for its time, nothing short of revolutionary. The map is a snapshot of the world at a pivotal moment, just 2 decades after Christopher Columbus's first voyage. Yet, it shows details that European explorers wouldn't confirm for many years to come. The coast of Brazil, which the Portuguese were only just beginning to chart, is rendered with remarkable precision. Even more baffling is the inclusion of the Andes Mountains, which were not crossed and documented by Europeans until the 1530s with Pizarro's expedition. But the most controversial element lies to the south. The map appears to show a landmass stretching eastward from the southern tip of South America. For many, this is the most explosive detail, a potential depiction of the northern coastline of Antarctica, a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered for another 300 years. And not just a vague shape, the map shows this land free of ice with topographical features like rivers and mountains, a condition that, according to mainstream geology, hasn't existed for millions of years. How could an Ottoman admiral in 1513 have known this? Piri Reis himself provides a fascinating clue in the extensive notes he wrote directly on the map. He states openly that his work is a compilation, pulling together information from numerous source maps, some contemporary and some far older. He specifically mentions using the maps of the Genoese and the Portuguese, referring to the latest charts from European explorers. But most intriguingly, he credits what he calls the maps of the Arabs, and even more tantalizingly, a map that dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. This suggests he had access to ancient source materials, perhaps preserved in the great libraries of Constantinople, that were copied and recopied over centuries, containing geographical knowledge that had been lost to the Western world. This idea of ancient source maps is the cornerstone of the most compelling theories. Could Piri Reis have been working from charts that originated with a sophisticated, seafaring civilization from antiquity, one that possessed advanced knowledge of the globe? The most famous proponent of this view, historian Charles Hapgood, argued that the map's accuracy, particularly its use of a sophisticated spherical projection and precise longitudinal measurements, points to an ancestor civilization with an understanding of the world that rivaled our own. He suggested that a culture like the Minoans, known for their extensive maritime trade networks, could have circumnavigated the globe and mapped it thousands of years before the age of exploration. Their knowledge, he theorized, was preserved in the Library of Alexandria, and fragments of it eventually found their way into the hands of cartographers like Piri Reis. Of course, mainstream scholarship offers more conservative, though no less fascinating, interpretations. Many cartographers and historians argue that the controversial southern landmass is not Antarctica at all, but a distorted, composite depiction of the southern coast of South America, the coast of Tierra del Fuego, which was cited by explorers, and perhaps even rumors of a great southern land that were already circulating among sailors. The ice-free coastline could simply be a misinterpretation of the map's artistic style, or the result of later damage to the parchment. They point out that the map also contains significant errors, like the placement of certain islands and the orientation of some coastlines, which is consistent with the patchy, second-hand information available at the time. The true power of the Piri Reis map lies in this tension between what it clearly gets right and what it might accidentally or intentionally reveal. It is a palimpsest of human discovery, a layered document where the bold, new knowledge of the age of exploration is painted over the faint, ghostly outlines of much older wisdom. Whether it truly shows Antarctica or not, its existence forces us to confront a humbling possibility that the great explorers of the 15th and 16th centuries were not so much discovering a new world as they were rediscovering it, sailing into waters that had already been charted long before, their voyages guided by the faded echoes of maps drawn by hands from a forgotten age. It stands as a testament to the fact that history is often a process of forgetting and remembering, and that some of our greatest discoveries might simply be the recovery of what was once already known. Leaving behind the intricate charts of the Piri Reis map, we venture now into a mystery born not from parchment but from stone, a puzzle so paradoxical it seems ripped from the pages of science fiction. In February of 1961, 3 men were prospecting for geodes on a mountain peak near Olancha, California. Geodes are remarkable natural formations, rough, unassuming spherical rocks that, when cracked open, reveal a breathtaking inner cavity lined with crystals. As Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mikesell gathered their finds, they noticed one specimen that was unusually heavy and seemed to be encrusted with fossilized shells. Later, back at their shop, when Mikesell tried to cut it open with a diamond-bladed saw, he nearly ruined his blade. Inside, where he expected to find the glittering crystals of a geode, was something entirely different and utterly inexplicable. Embedded firmly within the hardened rock was a mechanical object. At its center was a cylinder of solid, porcelain-like material, about 2 inches in diameter. Running through the center of this cylinder was a shaft of bright, corrosion-resistant metal. Surrounding this core was a hexagonal casing, made of what appeared to be copper, that had become crumbly and fragile over time. To anyone with a basic knowledge of mechanics, the identification was immediate and startling. This looked for all the world like a modern spark plug. But this wasn't found in a garage or a junkyard. It was found sealed inside a rock that, by all conventional geological reasoning, should have been hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of years old. They had seemingly discovered a manufactured artifact from an era when, according to everything we know, the only inhabitants of North America were prehistoric animals. The story of the Koso artifact, as it came to be known, quickly electrified the world of fringe archaeology and Fortean studies. Here was the ultimate, out-of-place artifact, or OOP art, an object that appears radically anachronistic, completely out of sync with the established timeline of human technological development. The initial excitement was fueled by a report from a geologist who examined the fossil shells encrusting the object's exterior. He identified them as species that had been extinct for at least 500,000 years. This dating, if accurate, would place the spark plug deep in the Pleistocene epoch, a time when early humans were only just beginning to use the most primitive stone tools. The implication was staggering. Either a highly advanced civilization existed on Earth in the distant past, or our planet was visited by extraterrestrial beings who left behind a piece of their technology. However, as with all such extraordinary claims, intense scrutiny from skeptics and mainstream scientists soon provided a more prosaic, though still fascinating, explanation. The key to the mystery lay in a proper identification of the object itself. Spark plug collectors and experts who later examined detailed photographs identified it not as a mysterious relic, but as a specific brand of early 20th century spark plug, likely from a Ford Model T or similar automobile from the 1920s. The central porcelain insulator and the hexagonal metal base were a perfect match for champion spark plugs of that era. This immediately shifted the narrative from one of ancient advanced civilizations to one of curious natural processes. The real mystery, then, is not the object's origin, but how it became so perfectly and deceptively encased. The geode itself was likely not a true geode at all, but a concretion. Concretions form when mineral cement precipitates and hardens around a nucleus, often an organic object like a shell or leaf, but in this case, a lost spark plug. This process can happen relatively quickly in the right chemical conditions, especially in mineral-rich environments. The spark plug could have been dropped or discarded on the ground decades earlier. Over time, iron oxides and other minerals dissolved in water seeped around it, cementing it together with surrounding dirt and hard-shelled fossils into a single, rock-hard lump. The saw cut had simply revealed this natural time capsule, creating the illusion that the plug was millions of years old when it was, in fact, less than a century. Yet, the story of the Koso artifact endures because it perfectly encapsulates a fundamental human desire to find physical proof that our understanding of history is incomplete. It represents the thrilling possibility of a paradigm shift, a single discovery that could overturn textbooks. While it has been largely debunked within scientific circles, it continues to be a powerful cultural touchstone, a classic example of how an ordinary object, placed in an extraordinary context, can ignite the imagination and challenge our assumptions. It serves as a crucial lesson in scientific inquiry, reminding us that the initial, most exciting explanation is not always the correct one, and that the true story of how a spark plug ended up in a rock is a testament not to ancient astronauts, but to the slow, patient, and utterly remarkable creative power of the Earth itself. While the Koso spark plug offers a lesson in geology's ability to create modern mysteries, another discovery from the American landscape presents a similar, yet even more visually striking paradox. In the summer of 1936, a couple was taking a stroll along the banks of the Red Creek near the town of London, Texas. As they walked, they noticed a curious piece of rock that had been exposed by the erosion of a nearby cliff face. What made it unusual was a chunk of wood protruding from it. Thinking it might be interesting, they took the rock home. Years later, in the 1940s, their son broke the rock open, revealing an incredible secret trapped inside. The wood wasn't just a random fragment, it was the handle of a hammer, and the rock had formed completely around its metal head. The object itself is a relatively ordinary-looking tool. The hammerhead is made of iron, and the handle is made of wood that has undergone a process of petrification, turning it into stone over immense periods of time. It's the context of its discovery, however, that sends shivers down the spine of conventional history. The rock that encased it was identified by some geologists as a Cretaceous period sandstone, a formation that dates back over 100 million years. This is the era of dinosaurs, a time when towering reptiles like Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops roamed the earth, and the most advanced mammals were small, shrew-like creatures. The idea that a perfectly modern, human-made tool could be found sealed inside such ancient stone is quite literally world-shattering. If authentic, it would force an immediate and radical rewrite of every textbook on human evolution and Earth's history. This is the core of the London Hammer's enduring appeal. It is the ultimate out-of-place artifact, a physical object that appears to blatantly contradict the established narrative of our past. For creationists and proponents of alternative history, it has become a key piece of evidence seemingly proving that humans, or at least intelligent beings capable of metallurgy, existed alongside or even before the dinosaurs. It's a tangible hold-it-in-your-hand challenge to the scientific establishment, a relic that seems to shout that our understanding of deep time is profoundly wrong. Mainstream science, of course, has a very different explanation, one that focuses not on the hammer itself, but on the rock that surrounds it. Geologists point out that the type of rock in question, a limestone concretion, is notorious for forming relatively quickly around objects. The process is similar to how a pearl forms around a grain of sand. Mineral-rich water can deposit layers of calcite and other minerals around a nucleus, in this case, a lost hammer, hardening into a solid lump that can look deceptively like the surrounding ancient bedrock. The hammer could have been dropped by a miner in the 19th century, and over just a few decades, the unique chemical conditions of the soil and water in that specific location caused a hard, stone-like concretion to form around it. When this concretion later eroded out of the hillside, it created the perfect illusion of immense antiquity. Further analysis supports this more recent origin. The iron of the hammerhead, while well forged, is of a type consistent with 19th century American blacksmithing techniques. It shows no signs of the advanced alloying or lost metallurgical skills we see in something like Damascus steel. It is a simple, functional tool from a known period. The petrified wood handle is also less mysterious than it first appears. Petrification, or the replacement of organic material with minerals, does not necessarily require millions of years. Under the right conditions of mineral saturation and pressure, it can occur in a much shorter, though still considerable, time frame, perhaps centuries, not millennia. So why does the story persist with such power? The London hammer taps into a deep and universal fascination with the idea of a lost epoch, a time when our planet might have hosted civilizations that rose and fell long before our own. It represents the thrilling possibility that the ground beneath our feet holds secrets far stranger than we can imagine. While the scientific explanation is almost certainly correct, the hammer's journey from a simple tool to an icon of the anomalous is a fascinating story in itself. It demonstrates how a single, strange discovery can capture the public imagination and become a symbol for a much larger debate about who controls the narrative of the past. It forces us to ask not just what is this object, but what does our desire to believe in it say about us? The London hammer may not rewrite history, but it remains a powerful and enduring monument to our endless curiosity about the forgotten chapters of our world. But if the London hammer represents a mystery born from the earth itself, our next artifact spins a tale that reaches for the stars. Journey with me now to the remote, windswept mountains of the China-Tibet border, to a discovery that is less about physical evidence and more about the powerful, enduring allure of a story. In 1938, according to a narrative that has become a cornerstone of ancient astronaut lore, an archaeological expedition led by a Professor Kai Pute was exploring the inaccessible Bayan Ha Shan Mountains. They stumbled upon a series of caves that showed clear signs of artificial enlargement. Inside, they made a bizarre discovery. The caves were lined with neat rows of graves, and within them were the skeletons of what appeared to be small, strangely proportioned beings with large, oversized skulls. But it was what they found beside these remains that would ignite a decades-long controversy. Hundreds of stone discs, each about a foot in diameter, with a perfect hole in their center, resembling primitive phonograph records. The story goes that these discs, which became known as the Dropa stones, were covered in a spiral groove so fine it was almost microscopic. Upon closer examination, this groove was said to be a continuous line of tiny, unknown hieroglyphic writing. The tale takes its most extraordinary leap when, years later, a researcher named Dr. Tsum Nui allegedly succeeded in translating the script. The message it contained was nothing short of astounding. It told the tragic story of the Dropa people, a group of extraterrestrial explorers whose spacecraft had crash-landed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. Stranded on an alien world, they were unable to repair their ship and were hunted and killed by the local tribes who feared them. The stones were said to be their final record, a plea for understanding and a chronicle of their doomed existence on Earth. This narrative has all the ingredients of a perfect modern myth: ancient astronauts, a crash landing, a hostile planet, and a lone hero deciphering a cosmic SOS. It's a story that has been retold in countless books, documentaries, and websites, captivating anyone fascinated by the possibility of prehistoric contact. The emotional core is powerful, a sense of tragedy for these lost visitors, and a thrilling implication that human history is intertwined with interstellar travel. It speaks directly to our desire for the universe to be populated, for our past to be more dramatic and wondrous than the standard archaeological record suggests. However, when we subject the Dropa stones to the cold light of factual scrutiny, the entire edifice begins to crumble. The first and most significant problem is the complete lack of any physical evidence. Not a single one of these stones has ever been produced for examination by the scientific community. They are not housed in any museum collection in China or elsewhere. There are no photographs of the original excavation, the skeletons, or the inscribed discs. The very people at the center of the story are untraceable. No records exist of a Professor Kai Pu-te or a doctor. Sumam Nui conducting such a groundbreaking archaeological dig. The entire narrative appears to have been first introduced and popularized in the 1960s by a German author named Erich von Däniken in his best-selling book Chariots of the Gods, a work that has been widely criticized by scholars for its liberal use of speculation and its lack of verifiable sources. So, if the stones themselves are a phantom, what could have been the original seed for such an elaborate story? Some researchers have proposed a case of mistaken identity combined with a fertile imagination. In the region where the Dropa stones were supposedly found, there are genuine ancient artifacts known as bai discs. These are beautifully carved jade or stone discs with a central hole, crafted by the Neolithic Liangzhu culture and other ancient Chinese societies. They were ritual objects often placed on the bodies of the dead, and while some have simple etched lines, none contain the microscopic hieroglyphics described in the Dropa tale. It's possible that a traveler or writer saw these bai discs, heard a local folk tale, and wove the two together into a new science fiction-infused narrative. The true power of the Dropa stones, therefore, lies not in what they reveal about the past, but in what they reveal about us. They are a perfect case study in how a compelling story can take on a life of its own, completely detached from facts. They demonstrate our profound need for mystery and our willingness to believe in grand, hidden histories. In a way, the stones are more real as a cultural phenomenon than they ever were as physical objects. They represent a shared modern myth, a placeholder for our collective curiosity about the unknown. They force us to ask an important question: are we chasing actual evidence of the extraordinary, or are we simply in love with the idea of the extraordinary itself? The enduring legend of the Dropa stones is a testament to the fact that sometimes the most powerful ancient mysteries are not buried in the sand, but are born from the deepest corners of the human imagination. High on the arid, wind-swept Bolivian Altiplano, at a staggering altitude of over 12,000 feet, stand the ruins of a city that seems to defy both its environment and our understanding of the past. This is Tiwanaku, and at its heart lies one of the most enigmatic monolithic structures ever discovered, the Gate of the Sun. Carved from a single, enormous block of andesite stone weighing an estimated 10 tons, this massive archway stands as a silent, imposing portal to a forgotten world. Its scale is humbling, but it is the intricate story etched across its surface that truly captivates and confounds. The gate is covered in a breathtakingly complex array of relief carvings, dominated by a central, imposing figure that radiates authority and mystery, often identified as the staff god, a principal deity in the Andean pantheon. Flanking this central figure are 48 smaller, winged beings, 32 with human faces and 16 with condor heads, all shown in a seemingly reverent procession towards the central god. This isn't random decoration. It is a dense, symbolic language carved in stone, a complex theological and cosmological document that we are only beginning to try to decipher. The first profound mystery of the gate is one of simple logistics. How was it made? The andesite stone itself is incredibly hard, far tougher than granite, and the quarry from which it was extracted is located over 50 miles away across rugged mountain terrain. The engineering required to move a 10-ton block of stone that distance, at that altitude, without the wheel, without draft animals, and without advanced pulley systems, is a puzzle that still leaves engineers scratching their heads. Some researchers propose the use of enormous labor forces and ingenious systems of ropes, ramps, and rollers, while others speculate about lost techniques or even the use of acoustic levitation, a theory that, while highly speculative, speaks to the sheer magnitude of the accomplishment. Once on site, the precision of the carving is another marvel. The intricate, deep-cut designs feature sharp, clean lines and symmetrical figures that would be challenging to achieve even with modern steel tools. The Tiwanaku people are believed to have used tools made of bronze and harder stones, but how they achieved such flawless results on such a resilient medium with these relatively soft materials remains an open question, pointing to a level of craftsmanship and patience that is almost unimaginable. Yet, the true genius of the Gate of the Sun may not be in its physical construction, but in its function as a sophisticated astronomical computer. Many researchers, building on the work of scholars like Arthur Posnansky, believe the gate was not merely a ceremonial entrance but a precise calendrical device. The complex iconography is not just religious art, it is potentially a detailed and accurate solar calendar. The 48 figures surrounding the central deity could represent the number of months in a calendar cycle, or the number of years in a specific astronomical period. The gate itself is precisely aligned along an east-west axis, and during the southern hemisphere's winter solstice, the rising sun would have shone directly through the gateway, illuminating the central figure in a dramatic display of light and shadow. This alignment would have been critically important for an agricultural society, dictating the timing of planting and harvest in a harsh and unpredictable climate. The gate, therefore, might have served as the spiritual and practical heart of the city, a stone oracle that communicated the rhythms of the cosmos to its priests and people. This leads us to the most hotly debated question: who built it and when? Conventional archaeology attributes the gate and the city of Tiwanaku to the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished as a major regional power between 500 and 1000 CE. However, this timeline is fiercely contested. The Aymara people, the indigenous inhabitants of the region, have long held that the city is far, far older, built in a single night by a race of giants before a great cataclysm flooded the area. This oral tradition finds a strange echo in some geological studies that suggest parts of the site were indeed submerged by ancient floods from Lake Titicaca, which lies nearby. Even more controversially, some researchers, using astronomical dating methods that compare the gate's alignments with the historical positions of stars, have proposed dates for its construction as early as 15,000 BCE. While this early date is rejected by mainstream academia, it highlights the profound disconnect between the standard historical narrative and the awe-inspiring, almost anomalous, nature of the structure itself. The Gate of the Sun stands today as a magnificent question mark. It is a testament to a culture that possessed not only staggering architectural and engineering skill, but also a deep, encoded understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and their place in the universe. Its weathered surface holds secrets we have yet to fully unlock: the meaning of its symbols, the true extent of its celestial knowledge, and the full story of the brilliant minds that conceived it. It feels less like a relic from a known past and more like a message from a lost chapter of human achievement, a chapter that speaks of a sophistication that we are still struggling to measure and understand. Now, let's sail across the Atlantic from the sun-scorched Altiplano to the rocky, pine-covered coast of North America, where a discovery no larger than a thumbnail quietly appended one of history's most enduring tales. In 1957, During a careful archaeological dig at the Penobscot Bay site in Maine, a team led by amateur archaeologist Guy Melgren was sifting through the soil of a known Native American settlement. The site, dated to the 1200s, was a typical seasonal hunting camp of the Penobscot people, rich with the fragments of their daily life, stone tools, pottery shards, and animal bones. Then something glinted in the sifter that was utterly out of place. It was a small silver coin. At first glance, it might have been mistaken for a British penny, but its design was strange, archaic. It was sent to experts for identification, and the result sent a shockwave through the archaeological community. This was no English coin. It was a Norse silver penny, minted nearly 1,000 years ago, between 1065 and 1080, during the reign of King Olaf Kyrre of Norway. The implications of this tiny artifact, now known as the Maine penny, are monumental. For centuries, the story of the European discovery of the Americas began and ended with Christopher Columbus in 1492. It's a narrative deeply ingrained in our culture, but the Maine penny provides tangible, physical proof that this story is incomplete. It tells us that Norse sailors, the Vikings, reached the continental shores of North America centuries before Columbus was even born. This wasn't just a random object dropped by a modern collector. It was found in a controlled archaeological context, stratified in a layer of earth that also contained unmistakable Native American artifacts from the 1200s. This careful documentation is what gives the coin its immense credibility. It wasn't just found in America, it was found with Americans, evidence that it had been in their possession, traded hand to hand, long before any recorded European contact. This single coin is the key that unlocks a door to a history we already knew, but from a new angle. It corroborates the incredible sagas, the Viking epics like the Saga of the Greenlanders and the Saga of Eric the Red, that were long dismissed as mere legend. These stories spoke of a hot-tempered explorer named Leif Erikson who, around the year 1000, was blown off course on a voyage from Norway to Greenland and sighted a new land rich with vines and wheat, which he called Vinland. The sagas describe subsequent voyages to this new world, encounters with native peoples they called Skraelings, and even short-lived attempts at settlement. For a long time, historians considered these stories to be fanciful myths, great adventure tales with little basis in fact. The discovery of the Norse settlement at Elance Oaks Meadows in Newfoundland in the 1960s provided the first major physical proof of these sagas, showing that the Vikings did indeed build structures in North America. The Maine penny, found over 1,000 miles to the south, suggests that their exploration, or at least the reach of their trade goods, was far more extensive than we ever imagined. So how did a Norwegian coin end up in a Native American shell midden in Maine? The most logical explanation is one of long-distance trade. The Norse settlement at Elance Oaks Meadows was likely a base camp for further exploration, not a permanent colony. From there, Viking parties would have ventured south along the coast, perhaps trading with indigenous communities. They would have brought goods from their homelands, bolts of wool cloth, lumps of bog iron, and perhaps small items like coins. To the Norse, a silver penny was a unit of weight and purity in the silver trade, valued for its material rather than as a specific currency. To the Native Americans, it would have been a fascinating curiosity, a shiny, exotic object, perhaps worn as a pendant or kept as a charm. It could have been acquired through a direct, face-to-face trade with a Norse explorer, or, more likely, it began a long journey down indigenous trade networks that stretched from the Canadian Maritiles deep into the continent, passed from tribe to tribe over generations until it finally came to rest in Maine. The Maine penny, therefore, is more than just evidence of a Viking landing. It's a testament to the sophistication of medieval Norse maritime technology, and their incredible spirit of exploration. Their sleek longships, with their shallow drafts and sturdy construction, were masterpieces of naval engineering, capable of braving the treacherous North Atlantic. They navigated by the sun and stars, using a sun's shadow board to guide them, venturing into the unknown with a courage that is staggering to contemplate. This small coin suggests that their reach extended far beyond a single camp in Newfoundland. It hints at voyages of discovery and trade that flickered in and out of existence, leaving behind only the faintest of traces. It challenges the Eurocentric notion of discovery itself, reminding us that the Vikings didn't discover an empty land. They encountered a vast and complex world that had been discovered and inhabited for thousands of years. The Maine penny is a tiny, silver thread connecting two worlds, a silent witness to a moment of contact that was brief, likely fraught with misunderstanding, but ultimately world-changing, rewriting our map of history one small coin at a time. From the intricate stonework of Tiwanaku and the transatlantic evidence of the Maine penny, we now journey to the banks of the Nile, to a temple whose walls are inscribed with an image so peculiar it seems to flicker with an impossible light. Deep within the crypts of the Hathor Temple at Denderah, Egypt, a series of stone reliefs have ignited one of the most visually compelling and hotly contested debates in alternative history. Carved into the sandstone walls is a sequence of scenes that, to a modern eye, look astonishingly like a collection of oversized, archaic light bulbs. Each device features a transparent, elongated glass bulb, often described as a pear-shaped vessel with a snake-like filament coiled inside. This filament is attached to a base that resembles a modern socket, from which a cable or wire seems to run to a box upon which an Egyptian god is resting. To many who see it, the interpretation is immediate and electrifying. This appears to be a detailed diagram of an ancient electric light. The theory, popularized in the latter half of the 20th century, suggests that the ancient Egyptians possessed and used a form of electrical lighting. Proponents argue that the absence of soot stains on the ceilings and walls of deep, interior tombs and temples, places where torches or oil lamps would have filled the enclosed space with choking black residue, is proof that another, cleaner light source must have been used. They point to the Denderah reliefs as the blueprints for that technology. In this interpretation, the snake inside the bulb represents the glowing filament, the socket is a base for electrical contact, the cable is an insulated wire, and the box at the base is a power source, perhaps a primitive battery not unlike the proposed Baghdad Battery. The entire scene is then viewed not as mythology, but as a technical manual carved in stone, preserving the knowledge of illumination for future generations. This captivating idea, however, runs directly into the robust and well-established interpretation of mainstream Egyptology. Scholars who have dedicated their lives to studying Egyptian iconography see something entirely different in these carvings. They identify the scene as a deeply symbolic representation of a foundational creation myth. The bulb is not a light bulb at all, but a depiction of a lotus flower from which the snake, a manifestation of the fertility god Harsomptus, an aspect of Horus, is emerging. In Egyptian mythology, the lotus flower is associated with creation and rebirth, as it emerges each day from the primordial waters. The snake god rising from it symbolizes the moment of creation, the dawn of life, and the cyclical renewal of the world. The cable is interpreted as the snake's umbilical cord, connecting it to its source of life and power, which is the ritual pedestal or altar it rests upon. The entire tableau is a spiritual allegory, not an electrical schematic. The debate between these two viewpoints hinges on a fundamental conflict of perspective. Are we looking at these images through the lens of our own modern, technologically saturated worldview, or through the lens of the ancient Egyptian spiritual and symbolic mind? It is a classic example of pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns like a light bulb in ambiguous stimuli. The Egyptians did not document their world with photographic realism. They communicated complex religious ideas through a standardized symbolic language. What we perceive as a technical diagram would have been immediately recognizable to an ancient Egyptian priest as a story about their gods and the cosmos. Yet, the absence of soot in places like the inner chambers of the Great Pyramid remains a genuine puzzle that the Egyptian light bulb theory attempts to solve. If not electric lights, then how did they work? Egyptologists propose several practical solutions that align with known technology. Highly polished bronze mirrors could have been used to reflect sunlight deep into passageways in a carefully orchestrated chain. Alternatively, they may have used lamps with wicks designed to burn refined oils that produce minimal smoke, or they could have employed clever ventilation systems that have since been obscured or collapsed. The work may have been done in short shifts, with artists and laborers retreating to allow smoke to clear. The answer is likely a combination of these practical methods, not a lost technology that vanished without any other trace in the archaeological record. Ultimately, the Denderah relief captivates us because it exists in that tantalizing space between what we know and what we imagine. It forces us to confront our own assumptions about the past and the people who inhabited it. Were they pragmatic engineers secretly harnessing the electron, or were they profound spiritual philosophers using stone to capture the light of creation itself? Perhaps the most fascinating answer is that both interpretations, in their own way, are about the same fundamental human drive to push back the darkness. Whether with the literal glow of a filament or the metaphorical light of a god rising from a lotus flower, the ancient Egyptians were masters of illumination, and the walls at Denderah continue to shine with the power of their enduring mystery. Deep within the stark and breathtaking landscape of China's Qinghai province, near the summit of Mount Beggong, lies a mystery that seems to have been pulled directly from the pages of a science fiction novel. The air is thin here, the terrain is rugged and remote, and the silence is broken only by the wind whipping across the shores of Tossan Lake. It is in this desolate and otherworldly place that explorers discovered something utterly inexplicable, a network of ancient, rusty iron pipes embedded directly into the solid rock of the mountain itself. These are not random, natural formations. They are clearly manufactured, with some protruding from stone cliffs and others diving deep into the earth and even into the salty water of the lake below, suggesting a complex, interconnected system whose purpose has been completely lost to time. The pipes themselves vary in size, with the largest measuring over 16 inches in diameter and the smallest no wider than a toothpick, yet all share the same bewildering context of being fused with the mountain. They are not simply lying on the ground or resting in a cave. They are an intrinsic part of the geology, with the rock having formed around them, or, more perplexingly, them having been inserted into the rock with a force and technology we cannot comprehend. Initial testing of the pipes and the surrounding material yielded results that sent a jolt through the world of alternative archaeology. Some reports suggested the pipes could be as old as 150,000 years, a date that would place their creation firmly in the Pleistocene epoch, a time when early humans were only just beginning to master basic stone tools. The idea of an industrial ironworking operation from that era is, according to everything we understand about human history, an absolute impossibility. This radical dating is, of course, the core of the controversy. mainstream geologists offer a far more conventional, though still fascinating, explanation for the Beggong pipes. They propose that these structures are a spectacular example of what is known as a fulgurate, or more accurately in this case, a form of dendritic mineralization. This is a process where mineral-rich water seeps through porous rock over immense periods of time. As the water flows, it leaves behind deposits of iron oxide and other minerals within the tiny fissures and cracks of the stone. Over thousands or even millions of years, these deposits can solidify, forming tube-like structures that have the uncanny appearance of manufactured pipes. This natural process can create a stunning array of sizes and can even produce branching, pipe-like forms that seem to connect in a logical, systematic way. It is a powerful reminder that nature itself is the most masterful and patient engineer of all, capable of producing structures that perfectly mimic human artifice. However, the mystery deepens when we consider the composition of the pipes themselves. Analysis has shown that the material is primarily iron oxide, but it also contains a significant percentage of silicon dioxide and calcium oxide. More intriguingly, some tests reportedly detected unusual levels of rare earth elements within the metallic matrix. For proponents of the artificial origin theory, this is a key point. They argue that the specific chemical signature suggests a form of smelting or alloying, a deliberate metallurgical process rather than a simple, passive mineral accumulation. The remote location adds another layer of intrigue. Mount Beggong is an incredibly inhospitable place, high in the mountains and far from any known centers of ancient civilization. If these were indeed pipes from a human-built system, what purpose could they possibly have served in such a barren location? Theories range from the practical to the profoundly speculative. Could they have been part of an enormous, ancient plumbing or irrigation system for a long-vanished settlement? Or were they conduits for something else entirely, perhaps part of a sophisticated energy-generating mechanism that tapped into the geological forces of the mountain itself? This line of questioning inevitably leads to the most dramatic and controversial interpretation, that the Beggong pipes are evidence of an advanced non-human intelligence. The extreme age proposed by some, combined with the remote location and the seemingly industrial appearance of the structures, has made them a favorite topic within ancient astronaut theory. The idea is that this mountain was once the site of an extraterrestrial outpost, a mining operation or an energy plant, and these pipes are the fossilized remnants of their sophisticated technology, left behind and eventually subsumed by the planet's geology. It's a theory that captures the imagination, painting a picture of ancient visitors conducting mysterious operations on our world long before humans were there to witness them. The enduring power of the Beggong pipes lies in this unresolved tension between an incredible natural phenomenon and the thrilling possibility of a rewritten history. Whether they are a stunning geological marvel or the last traces of a lost civilization, they stand as a powerful monument to the mysteries that still permeate our world. They challenge us to look at a landscape and wonder not just what is there now, but what might have been there in the deep, forgotten past, urging us to keep our minds open to the idea that the story of our planet may be far stranger and more wonderful than we have ever dared to believe. Deep within the lush river deltas and swampy lowlands of Costa Rica, a discovery was made that feels less like archaeology and more like a game of cosmic marbles left behind by giants. In the 1930s, as the United Fruit Company began clearing vast tracts of jungle for banana plantations, their bulldozers kept striking something impossibly hard and impossibly round. As the topsoil was scraped away, they revealed not more rock but sculptures, hundreds of near-perfect stone spheres scattered across the landscape as if discarded by some forgotten deity. Ranging in size from a mere few inches to over 8 feet in diameter, with the largest ones weighing an astonishing 16 tons, these spheres are a testament to a precision that seems to defy their ancient origins. They are the legacy of the Dikwis culture, a pre-Columbian people who flourished from around 800 CE until the Spanish conquest, and they represent one of the most intriguing and enduring stone-working mysteries in the Americas. The immediate question that confronts any observer is the most fundamental one. How on earth did they make these? The stone itself provides the first clue. The spheres are carved from a tough, igneous rock called granodiorite, a close relative of granite which is notoriously difficult to work. The Dikwis people had no metal tools harder than gold, which is soft and useless for such a task. Their available toolkit would have consisted of other stones, likely made of an even harder material like gabbro or quartz, along with sand, water, and an immense amount of patience. The prevailing theory is that they used a combination of meticulous hammering, pecking, and grinding. First, a large boulder would be roughly shaped into a cube. Then, using stone hammers, artisans would have painstakingly pecked away at the edges, gradually working the form closer and closer to a sphere. In the final, most delicate stages, they would have used sand as an abrasive, rubbing it against the surface with leather or a flat stone to smooth out the final imperfections and achieve that breathtaking, almost machined smoothness. But the how is only half the puzzle. The why is perhaps even more compelling. What was the purpose of devoting such incredible effort to creating these perfect orbs? The spheres are rarely found in their original contexts, having been moved by agricultural activity and even looted to adorn the gardens of wealthy homes, which has erased much of the archaeological evidence for their use. However, where they have been found in situ, tantalizing patterns emerge. At some key sites, groups of spheres were arranged in alignments, forming straight lines, curves, and even triangles. This has led to the compelling theory that they served an astronomical function, acting as a massive stone calendar or observatory. Certain alignments may have pointed toward the rising or setting sun on solstices or equinoxes, crucial dates for an agricultural society. Others might have been aligned with significant stars, helping to track seasons and guide rituals. In this sense, the spheres were not just sculptures but fixed points in a vast, open-air celestial map, connecting the Dikwis people to the cycles of the cosmos. Beyond the astronomical, the spheres almost certainly held profound social and spiritual significance. Their impeccable form, the perfect sphere, is a shape that is incredibly rare in nature but deeply symbolic across human cultures. It can represent wholeness, unity, the celestial bodies, or the cycle of life and death. The sheer effort required to create them suggests they were symbols of immense power and prestige. It's likely that the larger, more perfect spheres were owned by powerful chieftains or shamans, serving as markers of their authority, their lineage, and their special connection to the spiritual world. They might have been placed in important public plazas or near the homes of elites, acting as a physical manifestation of their power and the collective strength of the community that could produce such wonders. The act of creating them may have been a ritual in itself, a communal endeavor that reinforced social bonds and honored the gods. The mystery of the spheres is deepened by their cultural context. The Dikwis culture did not exist in a vacuum. They were part of a dynamic region of Central America with extensive trade and cultural exchange. Yet the stone sphere phenomenon is uniquely theirs. No other culture in the Americas produced stone spheres in such quantity and with such perfection. This uniqueness suggests the practice was a core part of their identity, a technological and artistic tradition that set them apart from their neighbors. The knowledge of how to create them was likely a closely guarded secret, passed down through generations of master craftsmen. When the Spanish arrived and brought with them disease and social collapse, this delicate chain of knowledge was broken forever. The meaning behind the alignments, the specific rituals they were part of, and the full depth of their symbolism were lost, leaving us with only the silent stone sentinels themselves. Today, the spheres stand as a powerful monument to a sophisticated culture whose inner world we can only glimpse. They are a paradox of brute force and delicate precision, of earthly material and celestial ambition. They challenge our modern arrogance that associates technological advancement solely with metal and microchips, reminding us that a profound understanding of geometry, astronomy, and social organization can be expressed through the patient pecking of stone on stone. They are a permanent enigma, inviting us to circle them ourselves, to ponder not just their perfect form, but the perfect mystery of the people who left them behind, a culture that chose to express its greatest ideals in the most perfect shape imaginable. High in the Andes, overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, lies a fortress that feels less like a ruin and more like a statement of impossible power. The name Sacsayhuaman itself is a puzzle, often translated from Quechua as satisfied falcon, but its true meaning is lost to time, much like the methods used to build its awe-inspiring walls. As you approach, the scale is the first thing that overwhelms you. These are not mere walls, they are a geological event, a zigzagging series of three-tiered ramparts constructed from limestone blocks so colossal they seem to have been dropped by giants. The largest of these stones is a behemoth standing 28 feet tall and estimated to weigh a staggering 360 tons. That's equivalent to 500 family cars. The mind reels not just at the weight but at the sheer ambition of it all. But it is the precision that truly defies belief. The stones are not simply stacked, they are intricately, perfectly interlocked. Their edges are beveled, their faces subtly curved, and they fit together with a seamlessness that is almost organic. You cannot slide a piece of paper, a credit card, or even a razor blade into the joints between these gigantic blocks. This is polygonal masonry taken to its absolute extreme. There is no mortar holding this puzzle together. The entire structure relies solely on the genius of its geometry, the precise angles and custom-shaped facets of each individual stone, which lock it firmly in place with its neighbors. This is an engineering feat that provides incredible resilience. Peru is one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, frequently shaken by powerful earthquakes that have toppled modern buildings. Yet, the walls of Sacsayhuaman have stood unshaken for over 5 centuries. During a quake, the stones in these mortar-less walls are said to dance. They shift and settle slightly before locking back into place, a dynamic, living architecture that modern concrete and steel cannot replicate. So how did the Inca, a culture that had not discovered the wheel, had no knowledge of iron or steel, and used no draft animals larger than the llama, achieve this? The mainstream archaeological explanation is one of breathtaking organization and patient, skillful labor. The quarry for the limestone was located over a mile away, up a steep incline. It is theorized that hundreds, perhaps thousands of workers would have used ropes, levers, and earthen ramps to maneuver the stones. To shape them, they likely used a technique of pounding and fitting. They would have pounded the harder andesite stones against the limestone, gradually pecking it into shape. The most compelling theory for the perfect joints involves a process of trial and error. A stone would be roughly shaped, placed next to its neighbor, and the points of contact would be marked. It would then be lowered, the high spots ground down, and raised again. This iterative, immensely time-consuming process would be repeated over and over until the fit was flawless. This theory celebrates the Incas' peerless stone working skill, their understanding of stone fracture points, and their incredible societal ability to mobilize and coordinate vast labor forces for such a monumental project. However, the sheer perfection and scale of the work have inevitably given rise to alternative theories that suggest a piece of the puzzle is missing. The official timeline states that the fortress was constructed in the 15th century under the reign of Pachacuti, a period of less than 100 years. For some, this time frame feels impossibly short for work of this magnitude and precision, especially given the technology available. This has led to speculation that Sacsayhuaman might be far older than we think, that the Inca may have built upon a pre-existing megalithic site constructed by a much older, more technologically advanced culture whose name and history are completely lost to us. The most dramatic theories even propose the use of a lost technology, perhaps a method for somehow softening the stone with a plant-derived chemical solution to make it malleable like clay, allowing builders to mold it into place where it would then re-harden. While there is no physical evidence for such a process, it speaks to the profound mystery that these walls present. Ultimately, the power of Sacsayhuaman lies not in proving one theory right or wrong, but in the awe it inspires. It stands as a permanent question mark, a challenge to our modern sense of technological superiority. Whether it is the product of tens of thousands of highly skilled workers demonstrating a patient mastery over their environment, or the legacy of a forgotten chapter in human history, the result is the same. We are left with a structure that feels both profoundly ancient and impossibly advanced, a testament to our understanding of material, geometry, and seismic forces that we are still struggling to fully comprehend. It is a humbling reminder that the past may hold secrets of craftsmanship and engineering that we have yet to rediscover. Emerging from the dusty plains of what is now Iraq, long before the rise of the famed Sumerian civilization, the Ubaid culture laid the very foundations of Mesopotamian society. Flourishing between 5,500 and 4,000 BCE, they were the pioneers of irrigation agriculture, the builders of the first temples, and the creators of some of the earliest known pottery in the region. Theirs was a world of immense innovation, a crucial bridge between the Neolithic Revolution and the dawn of urban life. Yet, for all their foundational achievements, the Ubaid people are perhaps most hauntingly remembered not for their canals or architecture, but for their art, specifically a collection of terracotta figurines so strikingly bizarre that they have become a cornerstone of alternative history. These are the Ubaid lizardmen and their elongated reptilian heads, slanted almond eyes, and postures that feel both human and profoundly alien continue to challenge our perception of humanity's earliest beliefs. The figurines themselves, often found in graves at sites like Eridu and are crafted from fired clay with a masterful, observant hand. They depict a range of figures, from mothers nursing infants to standing males and females. It is their physical features, however, that are so immediately arresting. The heads are distinctly non-human, often triangular and lacking any discernible ears, with a pronounced snout that gives them an unmistakably reptilian or amphibian appearance. The eyes are rendered as heavy, elongated ovals that sweep up at the corners, adding to the otherworldly effect. Perhaps most unsettling are the postures. Many of the figures stand with their shoulders held high and back in an almost unnatural, alert stance, while others hold implements or assume positions that suggest specific, though now forgotten, rituals. These are not crude or childish representations. They are consistent, deliberate, and crafted with a clear intention to depict a specific type of being. So what or who were the Ubaid people trying to represent? mainstream archaeology offers several compelling terrestrial explanations rooted in symbolism and spiritual practice. One of the most widely accepted theories is that these figurines are powerful symbols of fertility and life-giving force. In the ancient world, reptiles like lizards and snakes were often intimately associated with fertility, regeneration, and the underworld due to their ability to shed their skin and seemingly be reborn. A figurine of a reptilian mother nursing a child with similar features could be a potent amulet, an invocation for healthy children, a successful birth, or the renewal of the community and its resources. The figures could represent a specific deity or a class of protective spirits, intermediaries between the human world and the chaotic, powerful forces of nature that the Ubaid people were striving to understand and control. Another perspective views these statues through the lens of shamanistic ritual. It's possible that the lizard-like attributes are not meant to be taken literally, but are instead symbolic of a trance state. A shaman or ritual practitioner, in seeking to transcend their human form and connect with the spirit world, might be depicted as taking on the qualities of an animal spirit guide. The lizard, a creature that moves between the world above ground and the world below, would be a powerful totem for such journeys. The figurines, then, might not be portraits of literal reptilian people, but rather representations of venerated spiritual leaders in the midst of their transcendent voyages, their human forms merged with the essence of their powerful animal counterparts. However, the striking and consistent non-human appearance of these figures has inevitably fueled more speculative interpretations. For proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, the Ubaid lizardmen are not symbolic art at all, but literal depictions of non-human entities that interacted with this early culture. The theory posits that these beings, whether extraterrestrial visitors or an indigenous terrestrial species now lost to time, were physically present in ancient Mesopotamia and were either worshipped as gods or recorded as a fact of life by the Ubaid people. The figurines are thus presented as forensic evidence, a historical record of a close encounter that occurred thousands of years before the invention of writing, frozen in clay by witnesses who sought to capture the likeness of these astonishing visitors. While this idea captures the imagination, it faces a significant logical hurdle. It requires us to believe that a profound, species-altering event contact with an intelligent non-human race occurred, was significant enough to dominate the artistic output of a culture for centuries, and then was completely forgotten by all subsequent civilizations in the region, leaving no trace in the rich and detailed mythologies of the Sumerians, Akkadians, or Babylonians who followed. The Sumerians wrote extensively about their gods, the Anunnaki, describing them in largely human-like terms, with no mention of a preceding race of reptilian beings. This complete absence from the historical record that follows is a major point of contention for the literal interpretation. The true power of the Ubaid lizardmen lies not in proving one theory correct, but in the window they provide into the sophisticated and complex mind of early humans. They force us to abandon the simplistic notion that ancient art was merely decorative or crudely representative. These figurines are a testament to a rich symbolic language, a world-view where the boundaries between human, animal, and spirit were fluid and permeable. They show us a people who are deeply engaged with the mysteries of life, death, and creation, and who use their artistic skill to explore those mysteries in tangible form. Whether they represent gods, spirits, shamans, or something else entirely, they are a powerful reminder that the humans of 4000 BC were not primitive simpletons. They were thinkers, artists, and spiritual seekers whose unique vision, captured in fragile clay, continues to captivate, confuse, and challenge us to expand our understanding of the deep and enigmatic wellspring of human belief. Buried deep within the rock of South Africa's pyrophyllite mines, workers have been uncovering curiosities that defy simple explanation for decades. These objects, known as the Klerksdorp spheres or grooved spheres, are small, seldom more than an inch or two in diameter, and crafted from a bluish steel like metal or a softer, fibrous mineral called hematite. At first glance, they might be mistaken for primitive cannonballs or some kind of weathered mining tool, but a closer look reveals details that are deeply perplexing. Many are etched with 3 perfectly parallel grooves running around their equators, lines so straight and precise they appear machined. Others are perfectly balanced to an astonishing degree. And then there is their context, which is what truly sends the mind reeling. These spheres aren't found in layers dating back centuries or even millennia. They are excavated from mineral deposits deep underground that have been dated to a staggering 2.8 to 3 billion years old. This places their formation in the Precambrian Aeon, a time before complex life, before dinosaurs, before even the most basic multicellular organisms. The Earth itself was a hostile, volcanic world with an atmosphere toxic to life as we know it. The idea of a manufactured object from this era isn't just unlikely. It is, according to everything we understand about natural history, a total impossibility. The immediate and most thrilling question is, of course, what are they? The spectrum of proposed answers is vast, running from the mundanely geological to the wildly speculative. The most widely accepted scientific explanation is that these spheres are not artifacts at all, but rather incredible examples of natural concretion. In this process, mineral cement precipitates and hardens around a central nucleus, often a grain of sand or a fossil, in concentric layers within sedimentary rock. Over immense periods of time and under immense pressure, these concretions can form near-perfect spheres. The mysterious grooves could be the result of metamorphic processes where the surrounding rock underwent recrystallization, applying pressure that etched these lines into the softer concretion. Some geologists point to a specific type of concretion called a pyrite sphere, where the mineral pyrite forms these balls, which can then transform into hematite through oxidation, all while retaining their spherical shape. From this perspective, the grooved spheres are a fascinating geological oddity, a testament to the patient, creative, and often symmetrical forces of nature that can produce patterns we instinctively interpret as artificial. However, for those who scrutinize them, the natural explanation doesn't always seem to fully satisfy. The consistency of the grooves, their number, and their precise parallelism feel intentional to the human eye. This has led to the more controversial theory that these objects are indeed artifacts, but from a civilization so ancient that all other traces of it have been utterly erased by billions of years of tectonic activity, erosion, and geological recycling. This is the concept of a pre-human or Silurian civilization, a species intelligent enough to develop technology that either arose on Earth long before us or perhaps even visited from elsewhere. In this narrative, the spheres could be anything: components of ancient machinery, bearings for some long-vanished device, or even symbolic objects whose meaning is forever lost to time. The sheer age of the Earth, 4.5 billion years, provides a canvas vast enough for such a theory. Is it truly impossible that a technological species could have risen and fallen in the 2 billion years before we appeared, leaving behind only the most durable, enigmatic fragments of their existence, buried in stone that we now mistake for their natural tomb? This idea inevitably brushes up against the most dramatic and challenging concept of all, the Fermi paradox. This is the apparent contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial civilizations existing in the universe and the complete lack of evidence for them. One proposed resolution to this paradox is the hypothesis that technological civilizations may be inherently fragile, inevitably destroying themselves within a relatively short window of their development, perhaps a few thousand years. If that is a universal rule, then the 2-billion-year-old grooved spheres could be seen as potential evidence of this cycle playing out right here on Earth long before we arrived. They become a haunting, hypothetical warning, a fossilized clue that we are not the first to walk this planet and ask questions of the stars, and that we may not be the last to vanish, leaving behind only a handful of mysterious metal balls for whatever comes next to puzzle over. Ultimately, the grooved spheres of South Africa occupy a unique and powerful space in the world of ancient mysteries. They may not be the most visually stunning artifacts, but the questions they raise are perhaps the most profound of all. They force us to confront the sheer, unimaginable depth of geological time and question our place within it. They challenge the anthropocentric view that human civilization is a unique and singular event in Earth's history. Whether they are miraculous natural formations or the last echoes of a world that existed eons before the first fish crawled onto land, their power is undiminished. They serve as a permanent physical reminder that our planet's story is almost infinitely long, and that most of its pages are not just missing, but were written in a language we have not yet even begun to learn how to read. And now we arrive at perhaps the most intimate and biologically astonishing mystery of all, an artifact that doesn't just challenge our timeline of technology, but the very timeline of scientific discovery itself. Deep within a private collection in Bogotá, Colombia, resides an object that looks like it could be a ceremonial plate or an elaborate ancient coin. This is the genetic disk, and its surface is not carved with gods or kings, but with something far more profound, the secret language of life, etched in stone thousands of years before the science of biology even existed. Carved from a single piece of resilient lyddite stone, a material as hard as granite, the disk is a dense tapestry of intricate illustrations that are shockingly familiar to any modern biology student. The most immediately recognizable images are those of a human fetus in various stages of development, curled in the classic position within the womb. But the imagery goes far deeper into a realm that should have been completely invisible to the naked eye. There are clear, detailed depictions of a sperm cell fertilizing an ovum, showing the distinct head and tail of the spermatozoon. There are illustrations of the cellular structure of organisms, showing nuclei and other organelles. There are even carvings that appear to represent the process of cell division, the very miracle of mitosis that is the foundation of all complex life. This isn't primitive symbolism. It is a sophisticated biological diagram, a snapshot of microscopic processes that humanity would not officially document until the invention of powerful microscopes in the 17th century. The controversy, of course, begins with its origin and dating. The disk was reportedly found by a farmer in a region rich with pre-Columbian artifacts, and its style is often attributed to the mysterious Muisca or other ancient Colombian cultures. If this attribution is correct, the disk could be over 1,000 years old, perhaps even dating back 6,000 years according to some claims. This immediate disconnect is what makes the artifact so electrifying and so fiercely debated. How could a culture that we believe was using stone tools and practicing early agriculture possibly possess knowledge that requires magnification of hundreds of times to observe? The most obvious conclusion for those who believe in its authenticity is that this knowledge was not gained through optical technology, but was somehow known or revealed through other means, perhaps a deep, intuitive understanding of life processes or even information passed down from a much older, lost civilization. Skeptics, however, point to the complete lack of any archaeological context. The disk was not discovered during a controlled dig by professional archaeologists. It was a lone find with no surrounding artifacts to help verify its age. This opens the door to the possibility that it is a modern creation, an elaborate hoax carved by someone with a basic understanding of 20th century biology. The lyddite stone, while hard, could be worked with modern diamond-tipped tools. The argument is that a forger, seeking to create a sensation, crafted this object to prey on our fascination with ancient mysteries and out-of-place artifacts. Without a verifiable chain of custody and scientific dating of the stone's patina and tool marks, the disk remains in a frustrating limbo, unable to be fully accepted by mainstream science, yet too compelling to be completely dismissed. Yet, even if the genetic disk itself is a modern artifact, the questions it raises tap into a broader and very real mystery: the astonishing biological and medical knowledge demonstrated by some ancient cultures. We have tangible, verified evidence that ancient surgeons in Peru were successfully performing complex trepanation, drilling holes in the skull to relieve pressure, with a survival rate that suggests a sophisticated understanding of anatomy and antiseptic practice. The Ebers papyrus from ancient Egypt details a knowledge of the circulatory system that seems to presage later discoveries. While these examples don't require microscopy, they show a level of empirical scientific observation that we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. The genetic disk, whether real or fake, serves as a powerful symbol for this entire field of inquiry, a symbol that asks us to consider whether ancient peoples might have developed entire systems of knowledge through observation and intuition that we have since forgotten and are only now rediscovering through technology. It challenges the very linearity of scientific progress, suggesting that the path to understanding life may not be a straight line, but a circle, where ancient insights and modern discoveries occasionally meet, leaving us to wonder just how much our ancestors truly knew about the miracle of their own existence. From the intricate, gear-driven cosmos of the Antikythera Mechanism to the biological blueprints etched into the genetic disk, these 22 technologies unearthed from the sands of time present us with a profound and humbling reality. They are not merely curiosities or footnotes in a history book. They are glaring, physical anomalies that challenge the very foundations of our accepted historical narrative. Each one stands as a silent witness to a past that is far more complex, far more inventive, and far more mysterious than our textbooks have ever allowed. They force us to confront an uncomfortable truth: that the story of human progress is not a simple, linear climb from primitive tools to sophisticated gadgets. Instead, it appears to be a story of peaks and valleys, of brilliant zeniths of achievement followed by devastating collapses and long, dark ages of forgetting. What these artifacts collectively suggest is that history is not a fixed, set-in-stone record but a living, breathing, and evolving story, one that is still being written with every new discovery. The gaps in our knowledge are not empty spaces, they are realms of possibility, filled with the whispers of lost cultures and the echoes of technologies we are only just beginning to comprehend. These objects urge us to adopt a new kind of humility, to approach the past not with the arrogance of thinking we have it all figured out, but with the curiosity of an explorer standing on the shore of an uncharted continent. They remind us that every answer we uncover inevitably leads to a dozen new questions, and that the pursuit of understanding is a never-ending journey. This is not a call to abandon science or rigorous scholarship, but rather an invitation to expand it. The true value of these mysteries lies in their power to ignite our imagination and fuel our drive to keep digging, both literally and figuratively. They are a testament to the relentless human spirit of inquiry, the same spirit that propelled the builders of Sacsayhuamon and the forgers of Damascus steel. As we reflect on these puzzles, we are prompted to look at the world around us with fresh eyes. What other secrets are hidden in plain sight, buried beneath our cities, or waiting in the dusty archives of museums, misclassified and misunderstood? What chapters of our own story are still missing, and what would they tell us about who we are and where we might be going? The journey does not end here. It is an ongoing conversation between the past and the present, a dialogue that invites each of us to participate, so we want to hear from you. Which of these 22 technologies captured your imagination the most? Do you believe they point to lost civilizations, advanced ancient knowledge, or simply our own incredible capacity to find patterns and stories in the mysteries of the world? Share your thoughts, your theories, and your own favorite historical enigmas in the comments below. Let's continue this exploration together. And if you're ready to join us on the next journey into the unknown, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The past is waiting to be rediscovered, and the next great mystery is just waiting for us to uncover it.